This week on Jerusalem Dateline, every year thousands of Christians from around the world celebrate Easter week in Jerusalem. We'll take you to the places where the passion and resurrection of Jesus took place. Plus, the creative brilliance behind the religious classic, Ben-Hur. And a look at what goes into making the biblical Passover food, matzah, and its spiritual significance for both Jews and Christians. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. This week we're coming to you from one of the holiest sites in all of Christianity, the Garden Tomb here in Jerusalem. Thousands of Christians from all over the world come to Jerusalem to celebrate Easter week. There's two sites in Jerusalem's old city that claim to be the place where Jesus was buried and rose again. But which one is authentic? Let's take a look. Located near the heart of Jerusalem is a place called the Garden Tomb, what some believe was the garden of Joseph of Arimathea. Here some believe Jesus died, was buried, and then rose from the dead. The garden is a 2-acre oasis in the often hectic city of Jerusalem. British Christians bought the garden 125 years ago and formed the Garden Tomb Association. For years they've allowed visitors here free of charge. Richard Murrian is the director of the Garden Tomb.
What we do have here in the garden is a perfect representation of the biblical account at the end of the 4 Gospels. Everything in those 4 Gospels matches what we show people here in the garden.
Today, nearly 250,000 visitors pour into the Garden Tomb each year. Guide Steve Bridge took CBN News on a tour visitors get when they come to the garden.
What we plot out is the basic geography that we have in the Bible. Jesus was crucified outside of the city walls at a place called Golgotha, and in the immediate area to where Jesus was crucified there was a garden that belonged to a rich man by the name of Joseph of Arimathea.
We came first to the place the Bible calls Golgotha, where the book of Matthew says, "And when they had come to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, place of a skull." What are some of the main questions that people ask you when they come here?
I mean, some of the main questions, certainly from Christian groups, would be around, can we be certain that this is the place where Jesus died and where he was raised to life? People often ask about how come there are 2 places, there's here and there's the Holy Sepulchre.
The question arises because some believe Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the actual place of the crucifixion and resurrection, not the Garden Tomb. Constantine's mother, Queen Helena, helped build the church in 326 AD. The archaeological weight supporting the church's claim is substantial. For example, the Roman Emperor Hadrian built a temple on the site in the 2nd century because local Christians venerated the site as the place of Golgotha. But the evidence for the garden can be compelling too. The Gospel of John says, "At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden." If you have a garden, you need lots of water, especially in the dry Middle East. The Garden Tomb contains one of the oldest and largest cisterns in Jerusalem. It's 2,000 years old and holds about 200,000 gallons of water.
So the tomb that we have here is typical of a 1st century Jewish rolling stone tomb. It's dated as being at least 2,000 years old, possibly older.
In the garden, the Bible also says there was a tomb.
It is carved out of the solid rock. It's a man-made tomb, and that's how the Bible describes the tomb in which Jesus' body was lain. This channel that you can see in front of the tomb entrance is where the stone would have sat that would have been rolled across to seal the entrance to the tomb. So finally, the most important thing about this tomb itself is that it's empty. So why don't we go inside and have a look?
Okay.
What we're looking at when we look in this direction is through into the burial chamber itself. And what you have inside the burial chamber are these 2 areas where a body would be laying, one just down here and one on this side.
The tomb itself seems to fit the Bible's description. But whether the Garden Tomb or the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the site of the resurrection of Jesus, many Christian pilgrims take with them a profound affirmation of their faith.
I'm a Bible teacher in the States, and I have so many pictures and things to go back and to show them, and want to just take some of this passion back that Jesus is who he says he is, and he is the Son of God, and he did walk this earth.
As people look forward to Easter, those at the Garden Tomb stress it's not the place, it's the person.
The Bible writers really weren't that interested in establishing where Jesus died. The Bible writers themselves were much more interested in Jesus Christ himself, who he is, why he died.
And that's what we want people to take away, that the tomb is empty. And we as Christians of all the world faiths serve a living God who has overcome death, who has dealt with the sin in our life. And Jesus is the centrality of our Christian faith, is he not? And so here in the garden, that's what we want people to take away, is the living Lord Jesus. The Easter weekend is the weekend that changed the world, and the weekend when Jesus died and was buried and rose again for me and for you.
Just outside the Garden Tomb is where some people believe is Golgotha, the place of a skull where Jesus was crucified. But the place where Pilate sentenced Jesus to death still remains a mystery after nearly 2,000 years. But a recent archaeological discovery here in Jerusalem is causing some Christians to question those long-held theories. Here's Gary Lane.
Each year, thousands of Christian pilgrims from around the world journey to Jerusalem for Holy Week. They walk down the Via Dolorosa, the route that Jesus walked on his way to the crucifixion. Near Mount Zion, they can view a remarkable archaeological discovery. In 1999, excavations around the Kishli prison revealed something massive. Buried beneath the Ottoman-era prison were the remaining walls of a great palace. Amit Riem is an archaeologist with the Israel Antiquities Authority.
The archaeological remains that we found in the excavation points toward that this ground is the actual palace of Herod the Great. We have the retaining walls. It was a massive engineering project, and we see it in the excavation. We even found an enormous underground sewage that could only belong to the palace of Herod.
If it is Herod's palace, could it also be the spot where Jesus was tried? Some Christian historians believe his trial occurred in Herod's palace, while others insist he was put on trial at the Antonio Barracks fortress. The Bible says Jesus appeared before Pontius Pilate at the Praetorium, his residence. But did Pilate reside at the palace or the Antonio fortress? Christian archaeology professor Father Eugenio Aliata says it's possible the Praetorium was at Herod's palace. But he says the evidence must be more compelling if the Catholic Church is to abandon its long-held belief that the trial occurred at the Antonio fortress.
Usually we stay with the last tradition we receive, and it is necessary to have a very strong argument in favor of an older tradition to go back to that.
While the Herod Palace discovery may change some views of the actual location of Jesus' trial, still unchanged is the actual reason for his conviction, crucifixion, and resurrection. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Up next, it's a Hollywood classic, and for Christians, it's become an Easter favorite. We talk about the impact of Ben-Hur.
You had a grandpa named Pop, right?
He died when I was your age.
I saw him in heaven.
What if an ordinary boy...
Is this him?
That's Pop.
Your son had a near-death experience.
...discovered the answer to life's most extraordinary question.
Do you think my son went to heaven?
He told me everything was all right.
Based on the incredible true story.
We all want to be supportive.
I want to believe him.
But everything he talks about is impossible.
Will you believe?
You saw heaven? It's beautiful.
Heaven is for real. See it this Easter. Rated PG.
Hi, I'm Wayne Allen Root, former presidential candidate, conservative national media personality, best-selling author, and true blue patriot. I call what we're living in today the Great Depression 2. More Americans now receive government entitlements than work full-time. The typical family earns less today than in 1989. I understand exactly what's happening to this economy and how you can protect yourself. So I sat down and taped a 30-minute DVD on the topic with all the critical steps needed to ensure Americans can both survive and thrive in 2014. It's called The Timeless Truth About Money, and it's only available in this special TV offer by calling the number below or by visiting online. Thanks to Swiss America, you'll finally understand the true goal of Obamacare, how our trillions in debt will sink the economy, and most importantly, why your golden years require a whole new golden strategy. Call now.
Start planning your journey to the Holy Land. Come to Jerusalem. Breathe the air Jesus breathed that very night in the Garden of Gethsemane. Walk in his footsteps to Golgotha. Step inside the tomb. See the stone where his body lay. Glory to God, he is risen. Ask your pastor or visit goisrael.com to learn more about making the journey that will transform your faith in God and his word. Experience Israel. You'll never be the same.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. Watching the movie Ben-Hur has become an Easter tradition for many. It's one of my favorite movies. But there's an amazing story behind the film. And as you'll see, everything about Ben-Hur is larger than life. Here's Wendy Griffith.
The 1959 blockbuster Ben-Hur made history with a record 11 Academy Awards. And the 1925 version is making a comeback. What many may not know, however, is that Hollywood didn't create this classic story. The idea came from the best-selling novel Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, published in 1880. The book tells the story of a life-altering encounter between a first-century Jewish prince and Jesus of Nazareth. The author behind Ben-Hur is Lew Wallace, a true Renaissance man.
He tried different things. He loved to paint, he loved to write, he loved to do creative things. He loved the military. He became a prosecuting attorney. He was in the legislature for a term.
Wallace showed a talent for writing early in life. He learned about the Bible while at boarding school. While he didn't care for church, the story of the three wise men fascinated him.
Little did I dream then what those few verses were to bring me, that out of them Ben-Hur was one day to be evoked.
Wallace's writing took a back seat to other priorities. He fought in the Mexican-American War and the Civil War, becoming the youngest major general in the Union Army. He also married and had a son. Throughout the years, he kept coming back to the biblical account of the three wise men. So he decided to write a magazine article about them.
I had no convictions about God or Christ. I neither believed nor disbelieved in them. Yet when the work was fairly begun, I found myself writing reverentially, with awe.
Still, Wallace had much to learn about God, as he found out in a chance encounter with a well-known atheist named Robert Ingersoll.
Well, Robert Ingersoll knew far more about the Bible. You don't preach against something unless you know it.
Right.
And so he just kind of filleted Lew.
The time had come for Wallace to form his own opinion on the subject of religion.
My ignorance of it was painfully a spot of deeper darkness in the darkness. I was ashamed of myself.
And he realized at that point, I have no business submitting this finished story for publication. I don't know what I was talking about. I need to do the research. I need to learn the Bible. I need to learn the story.
Early in his research, Wallace created the fictional character of Judah Ben-Hur, telling how he witnessed the real-life events leading up to the death and resurrection of Christ. Wallace soon began to see God through the eyes of his character.
Long before I was through with my book, I became a believer in God and Christ.
This is the original manuscript of Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ. 650 pages, handwritten in purple ink. When Lew Wallace delivered this to Harper & Brothers back in 1880, they had no idea it was about to make publishing history. The book became the best-selling novel of the 19th century. It has never been out of print. What kind of impact did Ben-Hur have on a post-Civil War country?
It just was the right book at the right time. People were looking for ways to reconcile, to come together. They were exploring, how can there be a God that would allow a war to happen like this?
After its publication, letters flooded in, including one from President James Garfield. He wrote, "With this beautiful and reverent book, you have lightened the burden of my daily life." Wallace's own burdens had always been lightened outdoors. He did most of his writing under what came to be known as the Wallace Beech Tree.
Its spreading branches droop to the ground, weighed down by their wealth of foliage, and under them I am shut in as by the walls of a towering green tent.
That famous Wallace Beech Tree is no longer here. It actually died shortly after Wallace did and was replaced by this bronze statue of him behind me. But right over here is a building that Wallace dreamed about for decades, but never had the resources to build until the success of Ben-Hur.
Lou built this as his private retreat.
Wallace designed this 19th century man cave where he spent his golden years, writing every day until his death in 1905. His grave marker is inscribed with a quote from Ben-Hur by one of his beloved wise men.
I would not give 1 hour of life as a soul for 1,000 years of life as a man.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Crawfordsville, Indiana.
Coming up, a look at what goes into making the biblical Passover food, matzah.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
Every year, Jewish people from around the world celebrate the Exodus from Egypt with a Passover Seder. One of the feast's key elements is unleavened bread known as matzah. Here's a look at how they make this traditional food. The Bible calls it the bread of affliction, unleavened bread or matzah. Every year, the Jewish people are commanded to retell the story of their exodus from Egypt and to eat unleavened bread for 7 days.
Because the Lord made them live very fast, they had to make bread that didn't have time to rise, and they ate these flat breads, which is matzah.
Most Israelis take the commandment to eat unleavened bread very seriously, and many actually like it. Grocery stores like this one devote whole sections to it. And besides regular matzah, you can get egg, whole wheat, and even choco matzah.
The regular matzah must be made of flour and water only. The flour would look to you like regular flour, but it's not regular flour.
Roy Wolf is vice president of Matzot Aviv. He told CBN News the whole process, from mixing to rolling to shaping to baking, must be finished in 18 minutes, because the moment water touches the flour, it starts rising.
In reality, our process is much, much faster. We want to be as efficient as possible, and the whole process takes no longer than 3-4 minutes. But every 15 minutes, in order to avoid to have any leftovers of leavened dough, we have to clean the mixer system.
Wolf is the 6th generation to work in his family's business, which started in 1887. They've been in the current factory since 1946.
In the basements here where we have the flour silos today, the Haganah, the first defense forces, used to hide the weapons from the British mandate. Since 1946 we've been here making matzah. Of course, the factory was refurbished several times.
At Matzot Aviv, they make about 20 tons of matzah per day. They start in October and work around the clock for the last month, except on the Sabbath, to provide matzah to Jewish communities in Israel and around the world.
We are exporting to over 35 countries, to all Jewish communities around the world. From the large communities in North America to even the smallest community. There's one person that's in Wallis Island. He's the doctor of the island, and we are sending him matzah every year. And so he will be able to have a Seder with matzah from Israel. But we also have Christian communities buying matzah in countries like Korea and Singapore, where it's, I've been told that in some churches it's been used as the holy bread.
The Last Supper would have been a Passover Seder with unleavened bread. Because of that, many Christians like to take communion with matzah. Some even say that the design of the matzah, striped and pierced, is symbolic of the Messiah himself. You might think with all this matzah making that the Wolf family would get tired of Passover, but not so.
We're waiting for this Seder. We usually come very tired to the Seder because I'm working until the same day in the afternoon. But it means a lot. This holiday, of course, means a lot to us.
One Israeli compared matzah to a data drive, passing along information from generation to generation. Up next, the powerful resurrection story, shown in a way you've never seen before.
Do you have an idea for an invention or a new product? Brian and Alice Jagosh, the inventors of the halftime drill driver, did. They invented a power drill attachment that lets you drill, flip, and drive in seconds. Brian and Alice licensed their invention to the company that brought you the Snuggie, and it's now selling in major retailers nationwide. Look for the Invent Help Caveman on the package. If you have an invention that you would like to try to patent and submit to companies for possible review and want free information on how Invent Help may be able to assist you, call now. Invent Help is America's largest inventor service company with sales offices in more than 60 cities nationwide. Call Invent Help today for free information. Our clients made a financial gain with their invention, but this is just their individual result. Brian and Alice's experience is not typical, as only a very small number of inventions are licensed or sold in stores.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-559-8567. That's 1-800-559-8567.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than Bosley. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose Bosley.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
At a very young age, Joe Castillo discovered that he had a gift for art. And when he became a Christian, he began using that gift to tell others about Jesus. But he uses a very different tool to tell his stories, sand. Take a look at the Easter story like you've never seen it before.
The story, of course, starts out in the Garden of Gethsemane, out on the hillside outside of Jerusalem. And it was there that Christ took his disciples to pray And he knew what he was facing, although the disciples did not. And he was taken before the court. And he was mocked. He was beaten. He was subjected to scourging. And even after all of those torments and those wounds, and he was so badly beaten that he needed help in carrying the cross. He was wearing a crown of thorns that had been placed on his head, mocking him as the king. And hanging on the cross there was when he spoke the words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The grave where he lay, they had rolled a large stone over the opening. And sometime in the night, the grave had been opened. And the man that everyone thought was dead had risen from the dead, and the tomb was empty. And Christ wanted to be there, not to be any doubt at all. And so he actually appeared to his disciples and showed them the wounds in his hands and in his side, so that they would believe that he had come back from the dead.
Well, that's it for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. If you'd like to see the Easter sunrise service from right here in the Garden Tomb, you can watch it at cbnnews.com. We'll see you next time right here in Jerusalem.